Philadelphia 76ers roster is just about set, with Quentin Grimes being the true last loose end that needs to be tied up. However, Daryl Morey is never done tinkering, and on a roster in which there are already plenty of critiques about how many players in the twilight years of their career are still being carried, could there be room for a Kevin Love addition? A recent article has surfaced theorizing that this could be the case, and I do want to hear out the case and make sure I explain why I think this is absolutely insane to even consider here. Yes, I am running with the youth movement, that the thought process between continuing to build out this roster should be bringing in as much young athletic talent as it can, and Kevin Love, it is a step in all of the wrong directions in my opinion. But let me hear it out, and I do want to start off with this article originally coming from the Sporting News here with the headline, 76ers trade idea grabs 5-time All-Star as front court insurance. And it writes out, the Philadelphia 76ers are in one of the stranger positions around the NBA. On paper, they'll likely have a chance to win a championship, but it all comes down to what Joel Embiid's health looks like. If Embiid isn't healthy, the 76ers shouldn't expect to accomplish much, and the front office, fan base, and more understand that. While there have been some frustrating moments for the 76ers over the past few years, there have been a few bright spots as well. The 76ers boast some of the brightest young talent in the NBA, with some players serving as role players and others, like Tyrese Maxey, who could be the future of the organization. Despite that reality, and the 76ers likely understanding that they should take a younger route sometime in the near future if they aren't healthy, Clutch Points recently proposed the idea of them trading for a veteran in Kevin Love of the Utah Jazz. Quote, but Love is 36, and while he can help guide Utah's young frontcourt players, he has little long-term overlap with the team's timeline. For the Jazz, Love is both a short-term floor spacer and a trade asset with postseason credibility. Teams like the Phoenix Suns, Denver Nuggets, or Philadelphia 76ers could see him as the final frontcourt piece for a title push. His salary, while not tiny, is movable, and Utah could package him with another player to return a higher draft pick or an intriguing prospect, Rohan Brombat writes. Love was traded during the offseason from the Miami Heat to the Jazz, a deal that likely didn't make him too happy. There have been reports stating that he wants to play in a big city, so Philadelphia would give him that at least. Now, I will preface this by saying there was a point in time in which I would have been absolutely all in on Kevin Love being an impact addition to this Sixers team. That I do believe in an ideal world with a healthy Joel Embiid, Love could be everything they're hoping for as the true power forward, a floor-spacing big man in a way that Embiid has never truly had in his career. Ersan Ilyasova, the closest thing that the Sixers ever really put around Embiid as far as a floor-spacing power forward that can shoot corner threes and rebound the basketball there. Kevin Love in his prime was absolutely that, but we are not talking about that version of Kevin Love. And to reflect on what he brought to the table last year, he played just 10.9 minutes per game for the Miami Heat, averaged just 5.3 points, 4.1 rebounds, 1.0 assists, still shot 35.8% from beyond the three-point arc, shot better from the three-point arc than from the field overall, which I do think is a little bit interesting. But he is 36 and will be 37 at the start of next year, and that is kind of where the conversation starts and ends, in my opinion here. That, yes, it's true, the Sixers still need a power forward. Yes, it's true that the archetype of player that Kevin Love is does make sense on this overall roster, but I don't believe in investing any sort of asset to bring over a 37-year-old Kevin Love. And by the way, I will note with those stats that he played 23 total games last year. Now, I'll give him a little bit of a pass from the standpoint of it does seem to be there was something pretty legitimate and serious within a family issue that he stepped away from the team for an extended period of time to deal with, or whatever the case may be, to be around his family, and we don't really have the details or what that is. I am sympathetic to whatever that situation was, and there is also a part of me that kind of think that can be viewed as a positive, that yes, he was not playing high-level basketball for an extended stretch, but also we know who Kevin Love is as a basketball player and what he's accomplished in his career, and that was not using up whatever little gas is still left in the tank. It also would not shock me if Kevin Love just ultimately decides to walk away. That I don't know what more he hopes to accomplish. He's got a championship ring on his finger. He's been an all-star plenty times over to this point. And again, he's 37 years old. Now, as far as the Sixers depth chart overall, it is fair to critique the power forward position directly here. And Gershon Yabusele still being shown as the top guy from last year. He obviously has walked away to the New York Knicks. There is not really a squint and hope power forward that sure, you can hope. Maybe can you do an Andre Drummond and Joel Embiid pairing? We saw it in very short short doses last year. I don't think that there is a world where that directly works. Are we counting on Kelly Oubre? Is Paul George going to be a full-time power forward, which is something I think is worth noting. He kind of has thrown hissy fits about in previous stops of his career. Now, maybe he's matured, maybe he's accepted it, and I do think from a pure skill standpoint, that is a closer fit to what he brings to the table compared to what it has been the case for most of his career. But nonetheless, that is a fair critique that is a concern on this Sixers team. I also will note that I don't think anything is getting done whatsoever until the Quentin Grimes situation is handled. That is going to continue to be the factor that looms over the remainder of the offseason here. I think that is likely the final move that is made overall for this Sixers team. That Daryl Morey's prioritized in years past, keeping that open roster spot for the financial flexibility, the low cost that it does bring on, and the flexibility from the stance of you can trade for 3 players by sending out 2 and that type of maneuvers that he can make. And I personally don't value that nearly in the same way. That I look at that as the worst case scenario is you just got to cut your worst player, and I'm not going to be heartbroken if one of the bottom of the roster guys, maybe even a Kyle Lowry in this case, is the dude that ends up on the chopping block, maybe hop right across that line and join the assistant coaching staff. That wouldn't be the end of the world in my mind there, but I understand that in the era that we live in, with the CBA in full effect and every penny seeming to count a little bit more to every team, that I do think Morey's going to go that direction and keep that roster spot open. I will also note once again that I don't think the Sixers should just be treated like any NBA team, that this is as injury-prone of roster as you could possibly ask for, with Joel Embiid leading the charge in that conversation. With that noted, I do think it is important to prioritize maximizing every single roster spot that you have, and I think leaving one open does put yourself in not the most advantageous position for actually producing success on the court. Sure, you can give me the pros and cons and point to the flexibility, but I will give you the pros and cons of just not having a 15th option. Think about some of the rosters and some of the lineups that we saw on the court last year. I know everything went to disaster at the midpoint of last year, and it was ultimately whatever happens, happens. They were cycling through young talent, see who could stick, and all those types of conversation, but we will see ultimately what happens from here. I am out on the Kevin Love idea, and I do think that he will ultimately not finish the season in Utah. We did get a report also from a Clutch Points reporter, this is coming from Brett Siegel here, that Kevin Love wants to join the Lakers or Clippers. Those are both teams that I think make a lot more sense for Kevin Love than the Sixers. Sure, you can squint and talk yourself into the Sixers being a title contender. The Eastern Conference is wide open, and if Joel Embiid is healthy, they absolutely have a pathway to achieving that. But those are a lot of big ifs that we just threw out there, and I can't imagine Kevin Love sitting out there in Utah or wherever he is at right now is buying in that he is the missing piece on the Sixers team. I do think he can play a little bit. I do think he can help a team and a contending team in the right role. I just don't see that happening in Philadelphia, and this is a conversation that I just don't want to go down any further. I do believe we have enough aging veterans that are on the north side of 35 years old already on roster. I would argue we've already burnt a roster spot with Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon in a slightly different category, but not much better in my mind here. Let's keep bringing in young kids. Let's keep embracing this youth movement, and we'll see what happens when we ultimately check rock and play basketball. Let me know if you guys are on the same page as me with the Kevin Love outlook. I am 100% out on it, and honestly don't think this has any sort of weight here. I think this is a situation where maybe in theory it could work, is worth writing up an article, but I don't think this is a rumor that has any legs. But let me know if you're on the same page as me. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. We're going to continue plugging along in this offseason. I know it is the dead time of year, but let me know what you guys think in the comments and anything else that you want to see on this channel. So appreciate you guys once again. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video here. We'll be back talking to you next time. Peace.